All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm calling this meeting of the Rockingham County Planning Board in order. So first order of business, I'll ask Mr. Harris to deliver our invocation.
Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. We thank You for the opportunity that we can meet for our September the 9th Rockingham County Planning Board meeting. Lord, just be with us tonight as we review the cases being presented to us. Give us the wisdom and knowledge to make decisions that will be beneficial to the citizens of Rockingham County and the requesting parties. We ask these things in Your precious name. Amen.
You should all have before you a copy of the minutes of the June 24th, 2019 meeting. Now I would entertain, well, first of all, has anybody identified any corrections that need to be made to the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 24th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes of the June 24th meeting, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Cunningham to read our procedures for tonight's proceedings.
Any and all person who would like to speak regarding any case being heard by the Planning Board must sign in on the case file roster prior to the beginning of the meeting. Each speaker must be sworn in by the presiding board member prior to the case hearings. Additionally, each speaker must be recognized by the presiding board member prior to speaking. Unless otherwise specified, all testimony, evidence, and comments should be directed to the board chairperson or presiding board member. Each case will be presented to the board by a member of the planning staff. Following the staff presentation, the case applicant will be given the opportunity to brief the board regarding the case. Following the applicant's presentation, those who have signed up to do so will be granted the opportunity to speak against or in support of the proposal. If needed, the board chairperson reserves the right to set time limits for each speaker. After the public comment period is completed, the applicant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal. This will be followed by board discussion, motions, and voting procedures.
Okay. At this time, I'd ask that anyone who has signed up to speak tonight on either of the cases before us, please come forward and be sworn in. We can share Bibles.
Yeah. No, that's good.
We don't give each other minutes here. We don't give each other minutes. Okay. Can you please raise your hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence and testimony you shall present to the Rockingham County Planning Board on the matters at hand shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, you may be seated for now. Our first case is case number 2019-012. At this point, I'll ask staff to come present the case to us.
This is an unusual case, which is a case of downzoning. The applicant has requested to change from residential agriculture and residential protected to only residential agricultural. And you can see they have residential protected along the roadway. So basically they want the entirety of the parcel to be residential agriculture. This shows you where the parcel is located in relation to the long-range plan, to the land use plan. It's a finding policies that match this request from the land use plan are a little different than we typically would, but in a land use plan, there are sometimes lands reserved for higher density development, typically if there's urban areas where you would not want to lose that opportunity in a high growth area. This is not the case in this request. It's a rural area. The request just would maintain the rural character for that parcel. Parcel is located here, 795 Hampton Road. And again, they're rezoning the portion along the road as well as the rest of the parcel so that it's all one zoning district. Topography and environmental features of the land. The growth management strategies that best apply are about preserving agricultural lands and natural areas and promoting growth in and around municipalities and other targeted growth areas. The growth management policy guidelines that apply best are agricultural and rural preservation. My presentations have become very succinct. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you. Joseph Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, can you state your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Joseph Mitchell. I live at 769 Hampton Road, Eden, North Carolina, 27288.
What would you like us to know about this application?
Well, my property is right beside Lord Heating and Air Conditioning, and I'm just here for support and say I'm for whatever he would like to do with his property.
Okay, this isn't your application.
No.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Mitchell? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to speak about the application?
I'm just applying for rezoning. I was unaware when I opened my business in 2001 that we were residential protected in the front and residential agriculture in the back, and I'm just wanting to continue to do what I'm doing. And it's the only reason I applied for it. I was informed by the county that I was out of compliance, and I'm just trying to get into compliance.
Are you Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, sir, I am.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lloyd? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Is there any discussion by the board about this application? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve or deny the rezoning. Approve or deny, to recommend approving or denying the rezoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve, and with the planning board hereby adopt the following statement as required by North Carolina General Statute 153A-341. After considering the recommendation of the planning board and adopted comprehensive plans, the board recommends approval of case 2019-012. This action is consistent with the adopted Rockingham County Land Use Plan. This zoning amendment supports the intent and descriptions of the rural land class. The board determines that this request is reasonable and in the public interest because it preserves agricultural lands and under natural areas in that area.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of recommending approval of the zoning request, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Okay. We're recommending approval to the county commissioners. The county commissioners will consider this case. Ms. Spencer, 16.
Yeah. Am I wrong? Oh, I'm sorry, October. This case will be heard at the October Board of Commissioners meeting. Sorry, thanks, Emily, for keeping me straight, which is, make sure that we have this right. Yeah. Yeah. You'll hear this meeting on the 14th. No, wait a minute, sorry. Emily, help with the 21st. It will be October 21st. They only hear it at the second meeting of the month. I apologize.
Okay, our next case is 2019-014.
This is a request for a zoning from rural agricultural to residential protected for the purposes of a subdivision, of a major subdivision, which is not yet, the size of which is not determined at this point, but that is the stated intent of the applicant, is to subdivide the property. We're asking for you to be very objective about the land use plan in this case, because the land use plan will say, we'll talk about rural preservation, and it will talk about growth areas, and it's going to be difficult to balance those areas, but it's just something that you need to consider, and through the lens of the land use plan as much as you can. The applicant is requesting the 20 acres along the road be rezoned, not the entirety of the property. Just gives you an idea of what the topography of this area looks like. Growth management strategies that apply to this particular case are more about the rural transitional land class, developing residential design alternatives to limit suburban residential sprawl while providing opportunities for developers to choose patterns which are appropriate for their individual markets, providing housing opportunities that meet a wide range of affordability. Growth management guidelines that apply are residential development, agricultural and rural preservation, and affordable housing. So this is a straight rezoning, so there are no conditions attached to the number of lots, or the specific uses, but you have a list in front of you of uses that would be permitted should it be rezoned. Are there questions for me?
I'd like it if you could, because I'm sure the question will come up.
Sure.
After the decision is made on rezoning tonight, and assuming that it's in the favor of the applicant, what additional steps would the applicant have to take before his subdivision could be approved?
After your recommendation, the Board of Commissioners will still have final decision authority at that October 21st meeting. Before any major subdivision is proposed, a technical review committee reviews a subdivision proposal. Technical review committee consists of the fire marshal, the DOT, environmental health, engineering, myself. Basically, it's those who have regulatory interests that lie outside of our staff or outside of your purview. And they'll review the subdivision for safety and appropriateness. And everything from the way the roads are laid out for emergency response to what type of driveway would be required if it's a subdivision onto the road.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Ms. Spencer? Thank you. I have one person who signed up to speak for the proposal, Steve
Ahern.
Ahern. Mr. Ahern, could you State your name and address.
I am the applicant.
Yes.
Would you like me to answer questions now or wait for rebuttal?
Well, you'll certainly have an opportunity for rebuttal, but is there anything you'd like us to know about your application?
It's basically a straight rezoning from RA to RP, which is consistent with the residential areas around it. There is a RM directly beside it, and within a quarter mile other direction, there is another residential subdivision.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ahern? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, excuse me, I do have a question.
Okay.
Is it too early at this stage to determine how many houses you might?
There is, because we've not done any soil analysis. The area that you saw highlighted, until last week, the majority of it had corn in the field. He cut that last week. There's still a portion of that area that still has tobacco. So until the crops are in, we will not do anything to disturb it.
Okay, what is the typical lot size of the properties, for example, on, what is this? Falling Brook Road?
I did not develop that subdivision, so I can't answer that question.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is the area mostly agricultural or?
Across the road is RA. There is, like I said, there's residentially mixed beside it. Hogan's Creek subdivision directly abuts it on the frontage. And then on the other side, there's a parcel of land between it and I think it's called Woodgrove. And then after you continue up the road, there was some lots subdivided a year or two ago by a developer, which is across from where Gentry Road comes into Gideon Grove.
Yeah, just looking at the map, looks like there's a lot of fields in there, so I just asked.
There's a large tobacco farmer close by, and the property that this is tended by him, and he lives over on Ellisboro Road.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Ahern? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mike Landers.
My name is Michael William Landers. I live at 322 GP Road, which is right off of Gideon Grove Church Road, right across the street from where this applicant is applying to change the zoning. I live on a century farm that's been in my in-laws' family for over 150 years. And the comment that Mr. Ahern just made about there's one large tobacco farmer, there's actually two large farmers. One lives right off of Gideon Grove Church Road, and his property backs up to this particular piece of property that he's looking to develop. He's also the same one who helps tend to that farm, the corn and the tobacco that's growing there currently. My biggest concern with this rezoning is the more houses you add. I just drilled 2 wells on my farm for cows. One well went to 600 foot deep and it's dry. I drilled another well to 550 foot deep and ended up with 2.5 gallons a minute. So if you're talking about building a subdivision where we don't have county water, we don't have county sewer, and all these individuals are going to have individual wells, that's certainly going to affect our water table and the area itself, our resources in the community. That's my biggest concern.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Landers? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Robert Griffin. State your name and address, please.
My name is Robert L. Griffin, 1139 Gideon Grove Church Road, where my land adjoins is 2.2 miles from the land north, and we adjoin the land that they're trying to develop to the south. Our land joins that, so we're a big part of this. The Gentry Farm has been a working farm since 1918 or more. We have a 100-acre farm in my wife and brother-in-law. We currently lease our tobacco acreage to Kevin Knight, one of the biggest tobacco farmers in this county. Kevin farms full-time for a living. He's never done nothing else. Gentry Farm is also leased pastures to Ronnie Marshall, who lives on Simpson Road. And Ronnie cuts hay, and Kevin and Ronnie are constantly in the summertime having to drive tractors on Gideon Grove Church Road, which is going to make it very difficult if 70 40, 20 houses are built on Gideon Grove Church Road. These people don't understand this is a farm community. These people do this for their life, their livelihood, and this will be taken away from them. People get on their tails when they try to drive a tractor up the road, and they're not respectful to these farmers that's doing this for a living. Ronnie grew up with his father and now teaches his son Justin how to farm, to be a farmer as he grows older. Another local farmer, Mike just stated, J.B. Colley. J.B. farms tobacco along with Kevin Knight, and they employ 50. They have 50 employees that they employ every year for their crops. Reasons we're arguing for this change. We don't feel Rockingham County has the infrastructure to support the houses on this land. I know of 5 or 6, including mine. We dug a well. I'll be 5 years in October 31st in my house. We dug 500 feet to get 1.5 gallons, and I know of 5 or 6 more houses on Gentry Road that's like that. Just a main thing, septic tanks. We're not going to have. They're going to have to build septic tanks to these houses. They're going to have. I know Rockingham County is not going to run water, so wells are going to have to be dug, which is going to take away. They're going to take away all the water from people, these farmers and so forth. The county EMS. We have a volunteer EMS, and I'm going to use the number 70 houses in case Steve gets his 20, gets the first 20, and then he wants to do another 20 and another 20. It's going to wind up being approximately 70 houses there. My mother-in-law, she sat on her front porch last night and counted 75 cars in 30 minutes on a 2-lane road. Add 70 more houses to that and see what you're going to get on that road in 30 minutes. These farmers are not going to be able to run their tractors up and down and support their families by the farming. Power. Duke Power, the lights flicker on and off all the time because of the coming from the steam station over there, the voltage. We don't have the voltage that we need to keep our houses lit. Mr. Ahern is already building houses on Simpson Road, which adjoins Gentry Road right now. But back to being disrespectful, the people ride on these tractors, they don't understand the danger. These people are going to move in these lots, these 1-acre lots or half-acre lots. They're going to smell chicken coops. They're going to smell cow manure. They're going to smell whatever. They don't understand the lives of farmers. This is what farmers do for a living. Pigs, cows, they put off smells. They run motors and have to run motors all night in the tobacco buildings to have the tobacco right. They have a historical house on this lot. I don't know if this house was built in the 1800s. This house should not be torn down if by chance this is passed. It needs to be looked into by the historical committee as to whether this house is torn down or not. Me personally, 4 years ago, I had to pay a tax deferment of a back pay for 4.5 years because my 1-acre lot was changed over from agriculture to what we had to do to build a house on my own farm, on my wife's own farm. Well, if he's wanting to buy 20 acres, I'm asking the board that he pay a tax deferment, on that land back 4 years and a penalty like I had to do. And we live in a farm. I mean, this is what people they've got millions of, and I say millions of dollars of equipment. You couldn't even put it in this building right here that what are they gonna do with it? What's Kevin and JB that's never done nothing but farm? I mean, yeah, I worked in a plant, but these guys do it for a living and teach their kids how to do this. And you're asking them to have to put up with 70 cars, or the 70 cars going up Gideon Grove Church Road. And it's just not feasible. And I think if you talked with the fire department, I don't think the fire steward, he would agree with this. And I know you're going to get taxes. I know you're going to get Rockingham County taxes. But this is a farm community. And I want y'all to understand how important it is. This is a farm community. This is not a area to build 50 houses.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for your time.
Hold on. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Griffin?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Griffin, you say that your property abuts this property. On that map, which side is yours? Is it the long piece?
Going
there?
towards Simpson Road, my land joins the land that's being, there's two sections that's being looked at to build houses on Gideon Grove. I'm 1139.
Okay. And you say that your family has owned this farm for how long?
It's been in the Gentry family for 1918. Yes, ma'am.
So 101 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you have used it as a farm. It's been used as a
Working farm, yes, ma'am.
Working farm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. Griffin?
Do all the houses in that area have as difficult a time with the well depth and amount of gallons a minute that you do?
Very much so, sir. The ones that I know of, there's a lot of houses on that road that had to dig very deep. Very deep. When I say very deep, 500, 600, 700 feet.
That's a long way.
Any other questions for Mr. Griffin? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Velvet Griffin, do you wish to speak?
I haven't wrote anything, but I do want to say our farm, excuse my speech, but our farm has been around a long time. We're 5 generations on it right now. The total farm that Mr. Ahern's getting ready to try to do, it was built by my Uncle Pink Southern back in the 1800s. The old house that's there is a beautiful home, and it probably should be looked at by the Historical Society, like Bobby said. If it's ever tore down, it's really a shame. He was always a farmer, and I understand there was probably Gentrys and Southerns combined and the Paynes. They were relatives. We were all relatives. It was like 2,000 acres, I think, at one time. It was what I was always told. That's rumor. But we brought Mama tonight. She's 85. She loves that farm. Still lives there all her life. And Mary Ann Gentry's got just as much right, I think, to, know that when she's no longer here, she left it to us. And we're going to leave it to our children. And, to carry on. And thank you. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Griffin?
I have a question. Ms. Griffin, you've been on this farm all your life, right?
Yes, I have.
And how long has your mother been on the farm?
My mother married Daddy in 1954, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But she was just down the road in like a little rental house.
So it's been in the same community for your family.
And the Gentry Road's on our farm, and Velvet Road, of course. That was my 21st birthday gift for my daddy, who was on the 911 committee back in the 80s. He died in 82. They were trying to establish the 911 call-in, and they were making sure that all roads in Rockingham County had different names, each area did. And the ballpark's named after him. He was pretty big to do, John Gentry, back in his day. So he died at 49, though, had a massive heart attack. So that's all.
Any other questions for Mrs.
Thank you.
Griffin?
Thank you.
Yes, I want to, the house had been mentioned quite often about like a historical site. Was that on your property or
On my uncle, his name was William Pinckney Southern.
well, is that within this development now?
It is right, it's back in the middle of it. Yes, they're talking about, the
Well,
farm
how long-
itself is like 80 acres.
How long has that house been sitting there?
That
without
house has
any-
been there since the 1800s.
Well, it's sort of amazing that all of a sudden the concern was about the house, and looked like if that was that much historical project, something would have been done a long time ago.
Well, I mean, it's always been lived in. My Uncle Pink sold it my grandpa got his share back in 1918, 17. And, as a descendant, it's what's down the Gentry Road. My Aunt Myrtle owns a lot of property down there. She got like 100 and some acres. And that's the way he was. He never had children of his own, so he left it to brothers and sisters, and that's how it all went about.
Okay, thank you.
And but we've always loved it, and it means a lot to us, and we've got farmers that are really dedicated to it. And I will add, this land on the other side of the Velvet Road that was developed, I know for a fact that J.B. Colley had to plow under a crop so they could put those houses. I don't have a problem with a few, but 70, 80, 100, you're getting way out of line when it comes to farm country. Anyway.
Does anybody else have questions for Mrs. Griffin? I got one. No.
Sorry, that's my brother.
Does anyone else have questions for Mrs. Griffin on the board? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Robert Artis. Cheryl Artis. Can you state your name and address, please?
My name is Cheryl Artis. I live at 1002 Gideon Grove Church Road.
Okay, what would you like us to know about this application?
We are on the same side of the road as this development. We're 2 lots down. Our well is 620 feet deep. I'm not just worried about the well, I'm worried about septic system. My septic has to pump to the front of my yard. There's a creek that runs along the back side of my property. 20 or more houses on the front of that road is going to affect the watershed, which will then affect my well. It will affect the watershed of everybody that's there with us. When it rains really hard, the creek really rises. What are they going to do about that? All of these houses right on the road, it wouldn't even bother me so bad if it went back, but right there on the road, the traffic is awful. We moved out there exactly a year and a half ago. I bought the house because it was a rural community. I bought the house with a 620-foot well, knowing that I was probably going to have to dig another one because I wanted to live in a rural community. And to put another 20, 30 houses out there on the road where we already have 3 subdivisions, at least they're back off of the road, is just going to be a burden on all of us. The lights flicker on and off all the time. There's nothing to do with the septic. We know Rockingham County's not coming out there to put water or sewage in. What are we going to do? It really affects all of us, and it really concerns me that a house that I just bought a year and a half ago could be affected by this, not just in watershed, not just in water and wells, but also in my taxes. That really concerns me.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Artis? Thank you, ma'am. That's everybody who signed up to speak against this application. Mr. Ahern, would you like to address any of the comments?
I would. First thing, if we look at the map, I don't know if y'all see the map.
They have it
We
right in
have it
front
in
of
front
them.
of us,
They have,
yeah.
Mr. Gentry's property is here. The adjoining acreage he's talking about being subdivided is here.
can you,
I'm not the developer of that property. I'm up the road from him. That's number one.
you can use the cursor to
I'm not.
They were going to-
I'm not up with technology, sorry. The farmers, if you did, could you pull up the aerial of this property, please? Do your thing. Thank you. If you look in the highlighted area, how much of the area is cleared, as I just mentioned, Kevin just cut his corn within the last 7 or 8 days. There's still tobacco left on the other side of the house. I'm giving him the opportunity to get his crops in. I've done that everywhere I've ever developed. No one's ever lost any crops on any property I've purchased, even if I had to wait 6 months for them to do so. That's courtesy. I used to live on Gideon Grove Road. I know most of these people personally. To the Gentry family, I know some of the Gentry family. I built one of them's house, which is right there highlighted off of Gentry Road. Mr. Landers, I know him well. His 2 children are in my children's church from time to time. And I respect him, and I know the family he's speaking of because I'm best friends with 2 of the Paynes. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but as the last lady mentioned, the enjoyment of living in a rural community, I believe other people would enjoy that also. I've been developing now for 25 years, and I have yet to have a complaint about any subdivision that I have done once it was complete. At every point when I came before this board and when I came before the commissioners, I have heard the same arguments. The TRC committee, he mentioned fire. The fire marshal will be there. DOT will be there. They will make sure I do things correctly. As far as septic systems, there again, this county will regulate what goes in the ground, and based upon that is what I will be able to do. As for the water table, if you look at the number of houses that are in Hogan's Creek and the one down the road, yes, they may have 500 or 600 foot wells, but I'm a builder. Right now, I don't care where I build. 500 to 600 feet is becoming the norm. The key is I lived on Gideon Grove Road and my well was only a half a gallon a minute, but I never run out because if you drill deep enough and you get a reservoir in the well, you have more capacity sitting in the well with no new coming in than you can run out in a day. Our septic systems are only rated for 360 gallons per day. Anyone that can run math, if you're getting a half a gallon a minute, run your numbers. In 12 hours, you have capacity. If you're 500 feet deep and you got 400 feet of water, that's 600 gallons. You can't run that water out in 3 days if you do your calculations. I never ran out of water. Now, I did hear the gentleman say his well went dry. Yes, that can happen. I've seen new wells go dry. But in a lot of cases, they didn't have enough of reservoir for the amount of water that they had in the well to begin with. He mentioned the farmers. Kevin's only going to lose, as far as what he's tending, approximately 14 acres of land. He mentioned the safety of Kevin and Mr. Colley riding their tractors to tend these farms. Many of these people don't know it, but I also lived on Boone Road, which is a long ways from where Kevin lives. And he tends the property to this day beside my brother on Boone Road. That's a long ride all the way up Gideon Grove, down Lemons, across 68, on Sylvania, and down Boone Road. As far as I know, Kevin's not had any accidents getting to Boone Road. This is one of the closest farms to Kevin. So for Kevin, I don't see the issue. I think if Kevin had an issue, he'd be here tonight. But anybody that knows Kevin, he's not that kind of man. He's probably got more tobacco than he about handle, if everybody was being honest. Because as they said, he is the largest in the area. And I respect Kevin, and he's a friend of mine. And the issue of the house. I have no intentions of tearing down that house. I have already contacted Rockingham County and researched their records. It has a well. There is a tag on that well, and that well says it has 20 gallons per minute. That's a strong well. I imagine if you search some of them in Hogan's Creek, they're going to be similar. Anyone that knows anything about water, I can take you to a piece of property, and generally with the elevation, we call it a rock shift. On one side of a rock shift, people have a very difficult time getting water. On the other side, it is plentiful. The gentleman mentioned I just started 2 houses over on Simpson Road, which is right up the road. In the last 6 days, I did 2 wells, and I got 10 gallons per minute. The first one hit at 487 feet. The second one today hit at 160. They're only 200 feet apart. Can I explain that to you? No, I cannot. But I can tell you from 25 years of experience, the veins of water under this earth are similar to the veins in your arm. Some are shallow, some are deep. But most well drillers will tell you, you go deep enough, you're going to find something. But we do not have any intentions of tearing down the house. We've already researched it. It has 2 septic systems on it with 2 different systems and a very strong well. We will survey it off into its own parcel and sell it as a property. That is my intent. The power issue, I heard him mention Duke Energy. The power lines on this property, as I've been told by the individuals I've contacted, is not Duke Energy, it's Energy United. It's a different company. My understanding is Duke Energy stops somewhere around Gentry Road. That's what I was told by the representative from Duke Energy. Does the board have any further questions for me?
Are there any other questions for Mr. Ahern?
I have a question for Mr. Ahern.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Ahern, how long have you owned this piece of property?
I do not own it yet. I got permission from the owner to ask for rezoning. Rezoning is a contingency of getting financing to purchase this property.
What, if we do not approve your proposal tonight, will you purchase this piece of property?
No, because I cannot get financing.
Any other questions for Mr. Ahern?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Did you mention earlier on this particular piece of property, roughly how many lots?
We don't know lots
Possibly.
because the soil scientist has not been out there yet to do his evaluation of the soils. There again, Kevin just cut corn last week, and I told him he would not set foot on the property until Kevin had harvested his stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ahern, how did you happen to pick this particular piece of property? Did the owner approach you, or did you approach the owner?
The owner approached a friend of mine and asked him if he would be interested in purchasing the property. The friend told him that he could not afford that type of acreage and asked him could he pass it on to me. My friend and I went to the home, sat down with Mr. Tuttle, discussed what he wanted, and we agreed. We put it under contract, and that's where we're at now.
Have you ever forced anyone to plow under a field?
No, ma'am, and I will not. There again, if anybody that knows my family, we used to, when I was young, we had some tobacco. Not as much as Kevin Knight, but we did have small parcels of tobacco. I'm respectful of all the farmers in our area, but Kevin happens to be the largest.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Ahern? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion by any of the board members about the application?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll just put in a couple. One of the Duke Energy or Energy United is a member of TRC, so they would also attend a subdivision review.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I didn't make you aware of this before now, but the county commissioners approved my appointment to the TRC, so I sit on the TRC.
Okay.
as well.
Is there any discussion about the application? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval or denial of the rezoning request? Second time, I'll ask if there is a motion to recommend approval or denial of the rezoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we deny the request. The Planning Board hereby adopts the following statements as required by NCGS 153A-341. After considering the recommendation of the Planning Board and adopting comprehensive plans, the Board recommends denial of case number 2019-014. This action is inconsistent with the adopted Rockingham County Land Use Plan. Zoning amendments does not support the intent of the rural land class. The Board determines that this request is reasonable and public interest because we believe that it is not in the public benefit of the farming community in this area.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend denial of the zoning request. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded to recommend denial of the request. All in favor of recommending denial of the rezoning request, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. All those opposed to the motion, please signify by like sign. I don't know what the vote was.
It was three to four. 4 voted not to deny.
Okay.
3 voted to deny, 4 voted not to deny. The motion fails for the vote, and you can
Okay.
open the floor to another motion.
Right. The motion to deny, or the motion to recommend denial failed. Is there, I'll entertain another motion to either approve or deny the request.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion, but before I do, it's a difficult decision on my part. I prefer to live in a rural setting myself, and I have consideration for the Gentrys and what they have. But when I was put on this board, I was asked by a commissioner, would I allow someone to have the right to do what they want with their own land? And I see this landowner as wanting to sell his land. He may be in financial hardship. There may be other issues involved. We only make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners, and they make the final decision. With that said, I would like to make a motion that we approve this request and use the following statements as required by North Carolina General Statute 153A-341. After considering the recommendation of the Planning Board and adopted comprehensive plans, the Board recommends approval of case 2019-014. This action is consistent with the adopted Rockingham County Land Use Plan. The zoning amendment supports the intent and descriptions of the rural transition land class. The Board determines this request is reasonable and in the public interest because this will provide developed residence design alternatives while providing developers to choose I can't read my own writing. Develop residential design alternatives while providing developers the choice of providing what they feel appropriate for the individual market. This would be a positive economic boost to Rockingham County and the surrounding area. That's all.
There's a motion to recommend approval of the zoning request. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion is to recommend approval of the rezoning request. All in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. Thank you. I couldn't see the vote.
It was,
4-3, that's
the same, basically the same vote,
4 to 3
4
in
in
favor.
favor to approve and 3 against, yeah.
Okay,
So
so-
the motion carries.
That recommendation will be made to the county commissioners, and they will consider it, I suppose, at the same October meeting,
21st.
October 21st. All right. Is there any old business for the board to consider? Is there any new business?
The procedures, the guidelines?
Yeah, I just wanted to, couple of updates from me. The land use plan is critically behind schedule. This is something that, that we've just kind of come to our attention. The fact that it's behind schedule hasn't, but the amount of work that's been done is also very much behind schedule. So I just wanted to let you know that, and the powers that be will be discussing it and seeing about getting it back on track. Your rules of procedure include conflicting processes between Board of Adjustment and Planning Board. And I think that those processes have been confused in your rules of procedure, and that my recommendation is that we clarify those rules as separate. These are the Board of Adjustments rules and procedures. These are the Planning Board's rules and procedures. And you'll ended up actually having 2 different procedural documents to follow. And those procedures will follow statute and ordinance. The biggest difference is that for rezoning cases, you don't necessarily need sworn testimony as you do for a quasi-judicial hearing. And my recommendation is that you don't practice sworn testimony for rezoning cases, because it actually can be misleading as to the process. So, but I'd like the opportunity to write that, draft you new processes, and have you look at that at the next meeting, if that's okay.
I think that would be great.
Those are all, had Lynn Cochran left the county to go to work for PTRC, Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I don't know if we had spoken that
He
at a
informed us
meeting.
last meeting.
He informed you, okay, at last meeting, thank you, that's right, I wasn't there. Okay, so those are my updates.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any business to bring before the board? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning signify by raising your right hand. The planning board is adjourned.